You are listening to the Shopify Solutions Podcast, a podcast for Shopify store owners that brings you concrete examples on how to build and grow your e-commerce business. My name is Scott Austin, and I have an e-commerce agency named Jade Puma. In this podcast, I'll share my e-commerce insights and best practices with you. Scott Austin here. I've gotten lots of feedback from listeners on how much they enjoy episodes where I and a Shopify store owner have a conversation about their business and Shopify store. If you are an owner of a Shopify store and would like to participate in a consult like those, I am currently taking applications. There's a link in the show notes where you can apply. Hello, everyone. This week for the podcast, I have another store owner guest. This is a husband and wife team out of Wisconsin, and they have a website called Delafield Quilt Company. And welcome to Kathy and Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So why don't you start off on how you got started with Delafield, where the idea for the store came from, why are you in this business, and how long you've been doing it, and where you're at today from business performance standpoint.
Sure. Well, the company came from my love for fabrics and for specifically quilt fabrics. And the store was a nice excuse for me to be able to buy fabrics with the excuse it was for the store. It's grown a little bit over the years. I think 2017 was when I officially opened it, very, very small. And it probably wasn't until more of the pandemic that I just started to spend some more time on it and to grow the inventory, to kind of expand the items, not just quilt fabric, but quilt notions, tools, anything that you could use for sewing projects, essentially.
Yep. And today, is this a full-time job for you or a part-time job?
It's a part-time job.
For both of you? Excellent. And is that where you want it to be forever, or is your goal to have this be your full-time gig, or is it always going to be a part-time gig?
I would say probably in the near future, more of a part-time. I'm not quite ready yet, and I know Brian's not quite ready yet to leave our full-time jobs. But I do think that this would be something that hopefully I can retire early and go into this more full-time.
That's not really a retirement, though, then, is it? But it's a good idea. I get the point of it.
That I love.
It is when you love fabric.
Explain for people who may not understand the world of quilting today, because my great-grandmother actually made my quilt for me. She probably made it before I was born, the one that I grew up with as a kid in New England. Explain, what quilters are doing today. Like, who's your audience? Who are you selling to? Are these grandmas, or is quilting a more popular pastime than?
I would say it definitely ranges in ages. I tend to sell more of, I think, a younger audience fabric typically, but then I certainly get grandmas as well. And quilting is I think since it's it's evolved since really YouTube came around, and there's been lots of YouTube videos. Modern quilting is a thing. Artists really that have turned fabric into these beautiful creations. It really is quite a range of people. I would say probably more female, but there's also some male quilters as well.
Excellent.
And designers too of fabric.
So if you had like a target audience in mind, who do you think, what does that person look like to you?
I would say myself, because I don't buy anything I wouldn't sew myself.
So, but we're talking women that are doing this, and men also, but mostly women that are doing this, that are fairly young and are doing this as a hobby. Is this entertainment for them? Is it creativity? Why are quilters quilting?
Well, I think it's just with any creative art form, it's an expression of someone's creativity. There is a lot of, I think people quilt in clubs and groups. So for a lot of people, it's social. Was sewing since I was young from my mother, and I think many people learn from parents or grandparents, but I didn't really start to love it until I was more into my 30s. And some of my friends, who are a little bit older than me too, kind of introduced me to the love of it again. And it just became a real reason for people to get together, so not only their own projects, but charity projects too.
I love the social aspect. It didn't even cross my mind that this could be a social activity where people are getting together. Some people book club, and some people may have a quilting club, and that's how they pass their time. That's awesome. So your business today, What's the size of your business? How many sales are you getting? What's your conversion rate? Where is your traffic coming from? How would you summarize your business today?
I would say, well, we sell on Etsy and we have the Shopify website. Between the two, I would say on average about $2,500 a month in sales. I'm not really sure about the conversion rate. I know we typically get about 60 visitors to the site a day, usually 1 to 2 sales a day.
Mm-hmm. And where are those customers coming from? How do they get to your Shopify store? I would assume on Etsy, it's just the Etsy audience. You're not doing much marketing above and beyond posting there. But on the Shopify side of things, where does your traffic come from? How are they getting to your website?
I would say it's a kind of a cross between Pinterest and Google Ads. Google Ads is really the only thing that I'm paying for marketing wise. This last month, I think most of the traffic has been through Pinterest.
Yep.
Which is a mystery to me because I don't know how.
A little through Facebook we get as well.
Oh, yeah.
And on the Pinterest side, totally makes sense for me, where people are probably either, if you're posting up there, and if you're not, then other people are probably posting things they found on your site, whether it's a pattern or an idea, or they want to share that with people. Because I see in your feeds down at the bottom, you don't have a Pinterest account. Is that correct?
I do have one for the company. I just don't have it linked on this page.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't surprise me that Pinterest would drive traffic for you. And you might even think about, for advertising, thinking about going to Pinterest and trying advertising on that audience before you go to Facebook or something like that, or Instagram, which would be more expensive. Less people on Pinterest, and is a smaller platform, which actually can be an advantage because your space is right down there. What they're trying to do, right, is attract people who are creating and sharing ideas, which is what Pinterest is all about, and that's what you're doing also. So that might be an interesting place for you to go after. Now, for 2022, do you have like a business goal in mind that you're looking for your business?
I think ideally we'd like to double it from 2,500 to 5,000 in sales a month.
Do you have plans on how you're going to go about doing that?
Nope.
Okay.
Well, largely building inventory and getting more selection has been a big piece of it.
Yeah. And I do know that I think, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, that we need to do some SEO work just to get some more traffic. And we did enlist a service a few months ago to help with that. Haven't really seen much of an increase yet, but I think that might be something to help.
The beauty of SEO is, or the promise of SEO is free, right? But nothing in this world is free, even free SEO traffic. It costs you a ton of energy and time at the very least, and if not money, to create the content, right? SEO is generally about content. And the stores that are really successful in SEO strategy create and generate lots of content. And it's like they are a content business first, and then they sell products on the side second. Some of them, I have a couple clients who do like photo shoots and videos and films, and then they just happen to sell the t-shirts that you see in their films. They're very SEO based and very content driven, but just optimizing your product listings alone is generally not the winning solution for an SEO strategy, right? There's also content creation behind that. But if we look at your goal, let's just say your goal is to double your revenue per year. There's two ways you can do that. You can get more money out of your existing users, which is either increasing the average order value or the customer lifetime value, or increasing your conversion rate, or you can bring more users to your site, right? And generally, the idea of, I'm just going to, get more money out of my existing users. There's nothing wrong with that, and it's a great strategy. But at your small size, without knowing your conversion rate, I'm going to guess right now that it's 2 or 3%. And you're not going to take that 2 or 3% conversion and double it to 4 to 6% to double your revenues, right? That's just, it's not realistic. And anytime you talk about increasing your conversion rate, you're talking about, I'm going to increase it by 10%. You're not talking about doubling or tripling. Although, I've done store redesigns where we do that, but that's like taking a really bad, old, broken site that was built literally in 2004 that doesn't work on mobile phones at all, and all of a sudden making it work on mobile phones. That's when you get a doubling your conversion. So for you, it's going to be more along the lines of, and there's no one answer, right? There's all these parallel streams you're doing. But for you, it's probably going to be driving more traffic to your site, which is a fairly easy thing to do. All you have to do is spend money. But the challenge for all store owners, right? You guys are laughing too. Like, of course, it's easy to spend money to bring traffic to your store. But You want to spend money profitably, and that's the hard part. It's really easy to spend $10,000 in ads and bring a whole bunch of people to your store and even have them convert. But do you make $100,000 off of that, or do you make $5,000 off of that? And that's the hard part of advertising on the internet, and it's only getting harder. That's why I think, on the Google side, you said you were doing AdWords. Are you doing shopping ads, or are you doing keyword ads or text ads,
The shopping ads.
Okay. Can you spend more money and drive more traffic through that?
I have upped it recently.
Okay.
But I just did that last week.
Yep. And do you know what the ROI on that is? Do you know what the return on investment, or there's all sorts of metrics. Is it profitable for you?
I have looked at some. I don't know it off the top of my head, but there has been some where it's barely profitable. Yep. I would say. Yep. Depending on what was purchased.
Yep. So as you think about your traffic sources, right? So one of the things is, and actually, I said there's two ways to increase your revenues. There's many more than that, obviously. I was oversimplifying. And one that just came to my head. What a lot of people do a really poor job of, I'm not saying that in your space because I don't know how these products should be priced, but one thing people don't do is leave enough margin in their price to allow for advertising. Most stores are going to spend about 25% of their revenue on customer acquisition, if not more. And many small stores, when they start out, don't price high enough to factor that 25 to 30% margin into their prices. So another way for you to increase your revenue is to increase your prices. And that's probably not a realistic one, but it's one you should think about as you're thinking about this. Because if you're not profitable with your ads or barely breaking even, one way to make that profitable is to just increase your prices. There's a lot of other things which I'm going to assume you're doing, which is having good copy, having good creative, and doing all those things well. I'm spending $10 on ads and selling a $10 product. It's a lot harder to be profitable than selling a $100 product or a $1,000 product. So do you know how you're priced against your competition today?
I would say we do pretty well price-wise against them. Not too much lower, but I tend to look up everything that we sell because there's a lot of competition out there for fabric. Yep. A lot of the same things offered. So typically I will search, go slightly lower if I can.
And maybe that's something to think about, right? Should you be slightly lower or not? So let's take a step back and tell me what the Delafield brand means to you, if it means anything at all. When you say Delafield Quilt Company, what do you want your customers to think about when they hear that?
Well, Delafield, I picked a while ago because it's just one of my favorite towns in Wisconsin.
Oh, that's not where you're from? I assumed that was your hometown or something.
We grew up right next to it, both of us did. Okay. And so it's kind of, and I've always had in my back of my mind, if we would ever do a brick and mortar store, I would want it in Delafield. Okay.
What does the brand mean, right? What should customers think about the and let me phrase it for you another way. If you were a car company, which car company would you be?
Probably Tesla.
Why?
Well, I like the efficiency of it. It's modern. I think you save money with not having to pay for gas, and I own one.
But a Tesla, right, is not a cheap product.
No.
Right? They're not trying to be the cheapest, even the electric cars, right? They're not trying to be the cheapest out there, right? And they actually purposely started at the top of the market to establish the Tesla brand. And they always promised, we're going to come down in market. And even today, the Tesla's 3 Series or whatever it's called is still really freaking expensive, right? Their promise used to be, we're going to make the $25,000 electric car in the future. And I don't think they're ever going to do that because they've done a great job in making the Tesla brand be worth more than that. They're not trying to be competitive on price. They're trying to compete on features, performance. They have, the fastest cars that have the most, miles per recharge and all that kind of stuff. But they're definitely not competing on price. Mm-hmm. And if you want Delafield to be that sort of brand, right, known for innovation, design, whatever, maybe cheapest price isn't part of that brand. In your customer acquisition today, are you driving any traffic organically? You had mentioned SEO before. Is any traffic coming in from your social networks or from organic, or is it all mostly paid traffic?
It's a little bit of a mix. Instagram brings in some traffic. I do some emails, but it's really like every 2 months I send an email out. And usually that will give some traffic as well.
What are you using for email?
It's a Shopify app. like Segway or something.
Okay. When you send email, do you make money or do you get traffic to the website? Do you know?
Both. Typically, I share what the new products are.
Yep.
And typically a few sales through that.
Yep. Is there a National Quilting Day?
Yes.
What day is it?
I don't know.
There's several quilting related holidays that we've caught and posted on.
Exactly, right? Those should be emails.
They are.
Yeah,
right?
and we typically do like an Instagram post in that day. I would say there's a balance with time. I would love to do more social. I guess I'm not quite sure what I should zero in on because it's limited time because we both work, and then trying to focus on kind of things that be most bang for the buck, I guess.
When you do social, what does social mean to you? When you say you want to get more traffic from social, you want to do more social, what does that mean?
Probably more Instagram posts that would lead to, I would love to have more blog posts. I think in the quilting world, there's so many resources that I also want our website to be a resource to people where they can come for free patterns, maybe a blog post or a video on how to do something in quilt related.
Yep.
And I think that could draw potential sales as well.
When you say, I'm looking at your social here right now, and I'm going to get a little critical here. You have 321 followers on your Instagram, and your most recent post had 3 likes. The one before that, 11 likes, 3 likes, 2, 5, none of them with comments, right? Generating traffic and revenue from an Instagram feed is really, really hard. That's not to say you can't generate traffic and revenue from Instagram with things like ads and that kind of stuff, but just on the feed, it's really hard. And you'll notice that people that do a really good job of that have followings in the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and literally millions. Right? I've had clients come to me before, like, I have 25,000 followers on my Instagram feed. I'm gonna start a business off that. And then you do the math, and let's assume if you have 100,000 followers that 10% of them are going to come to your website in a year's time. So that's 10,000 people. And if you have a decent conversion rate, that's 2%. So 2% of 10,000 people, if I do my math right, I think that's 200, right? So 200 sales out of 100,000 followers per year. It's really, really small numbers. You need massive numbers to generate a lot. And that's why a lot of people who are successful on social are actually doing advertising on social. That's why I would look for you starting off on Pinterest, because I think your audience is aligned to your product and contents. I would start advertising on Pinterest to start creating that traffic to drive to your store, the right people. Now, that all said, you've mentioned a couple times, and I actually totally agree with generating organic traffic. Whether organic is on social or on search, they both start with content. If you don't have, unique content, let me look at your Facebook feed for a second here. You have what a lot of businesses have, which is basically, I'm not going to call them ads, but you're just showing your products, right? And we all do the same thing. We're all guilty of it. The ones that are more successful at this type of stuff are going to have more engaging content, more unique content. Video is super, super, super popular today. I personally believe that you cannot create enough video for your business. If I look at your video page, which takes me straight to YouTube, you've got 5 videos here already. And by the way, these videos are awesome. I looked at them already.
Well, thank you. My husband, he mixes them.
I don't know much about fabrics, but I figured that piece out.
No, you did awesome, right? And Kathy, you have the most beautifully manicured hands here.
My main fabric.
Right?
Thank you.
But the videos are shot really well, and they're really informative, right? So as you were talking before about, creating a sense of community or education and that kind of stuff, I totally think that's a place that you could focus on. You could start creating content like this that walks people through the whole process. And, step 1 is this, and step 2 is this. Because what happens over time is people will search on the internet for, how to make flying geese quilt block. And if you start making more and more content, you'll start ranking higher and higher for that. Now, a couple tips and tricks for you here is, if you go to my website, jadepuma.com, I have a video tutorials tab just like you do. But whenever you click on one of my videos, underneath it, I have a transcript. So all the words that I said here, I didn't write a transcript ahead of time and read it. There's software called Temi that I use, Temi.com, I think it is, Temi. And you just put your YouTube link in there, and it listens to what you say and converts it to text and gives you a text file.
That's
so
amazing.
It's unbelievable, right? And the accuracy is not 100% at all. But for me, and I don't edit this when I put them up there, I probably should, but I don't. And the reason I do this is for SEO, right? So notice this video is hosted on YouTube, just like yours is, but I'm still on my website because I want people to come to my website and watch my video. If they find it on YouTube, that's great, but I'd rather they be on my website. So I'm always going to host my videos on my website, even though they're hosted in the end in YouTube. And I'm going to put that transcript underneath it. And what that transcript does is it gives Google text to index, because it can't index what's inside of your video. You have to tell it what's inside by putting that transcript underneath it. So I could see for you starting to generate content as part of your customer acquisition strategy. And that content is just like what you're doing here with these 5 videos you've already done, where you're actually explaining and adding value, because these are absolutely fabulous, right? They add value. They explain to people what's going on. It's not just like, hey, here I am in the store today. Let me, walk around and show you how wonderful my life is, right? This is, I'm actually going to help you learn, and I'm going to educate you on this process, which I think is very valuable content. So I would just, think about a strategy where you start creating more of these and adding more and more value. And you already mentioned your other strategy, which I totally love, which is your free content. And you have, I think on your website, free patterns and resources. Totally fabulous here. Now, if I download this PDF, it opens up the PDF automatically, right? So you're giving me this resource, which is, let's just assume is really valuable. It looks good, right? Did you make these too, Brian?
I did not.
Because these look good too, right? These are way more professional than PDFs I make.
Thank you.
But you're giving this away for free, and most people charge a small price. It's called an email address. So you're not charging an email address for this. So you're not building your list. Some people may find you and like your content, but they never give you their email address. So you never get to communicate to them again. The reason you give away free content like this is to collect an email address. You're trading with them. You give them value, they give you value. Right now, you're giving them value and they're giving you nothing. So what you want to think about doing is adding onto this the collection of email. So Sego I haven't used Sego a lot, but it sounds like that was the email tool that you're using.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can figure out a way to collect an email address and then email them the PDF, or you could use the digital download, which is a free app in Shopify, made by Shopify. There's a digital download app where they can actually add this product to their cart for free and check out, and there's no shipping because it's free. And you'll get their email address as part of the order processing, right? So you can do it one of those 2 ways.
Okay. That's a great idea.
You're already, you're doing the stuff here. You've got this content that's awesome and, useful. Do you know how many people even download this?
No.
Yeah. And that's because it's just a link, right? There's no reporting behind it. So if you can't measure it, you don't know if it's being effective or not. And either one of those 2 methods, where you do an email sign up or you do this as a digital download, that would start to allow you to see what those metrics are. And then you can go from there. Your free resources and your videos, which are free resources also, on your video, let's assume this is in your page. Let's actually see what the end of a video looks like.
I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and please consider subscribing to our channel. Thank you.
Okay, so you're doing the normal subscribe thing that most people do. What you can also do, if you've got this video of yours embedded in your page, you could have an email sign-up form right below it. Want more tips and tricks, sign up for our newsletter and get notified every time we create a new video, that kind of thing. And even do a pop-up on pages like this. I don't know if your email tool allows you to do pop-ups, but what I do for a lot of my customers, we'll set up pop-ups on the blog pages and not have the email pop-up on the product page, because we want them to shop when they're shopping. But when they're consuming our content, we want them to sign up for the email list. So you can, put an email sign up, instead of, I don't know if you have, let me even see on your site here. Yeah, so you've got the one in the footer, right? So you can have a more overt one also on those pages, or a pop-up on those pages where you're collecting that, or where you're giving that value up for free, and then collect those email addresses. It takes time to build a relationship with somebody, especially, it sounds like, for the quilters, they've got a lot of choices. they're probably shopping around and seeing who they like. On your site, you're not really giving them an opportunity to know who you are. Like the fact that you are a husband and wife team in Wisconsin is fabulous, right? Like that sounds exactly what a quilt site owner should be like, as opposed to a company in China that is manufacturing, questionable quality of fabrics and trying to sell them quickly. You guys sound like you're legit, and Kathy, you're obviously legit about your passion around quilting. So people would probably relate to that and connect to that and buy from you because of that, but you don't share that with them anywhere. When I look at your site today, there's no about page, and nowhere do we say who the owners are. Your story, like I said, I think your story is awesome, right? Husband and wife team, everybody loves a husband and wife team. That's a great story. And Kathy, you do this because you love quilting so much. That's what you've told me twice so far. I love quilting so much. I love fabric. That's why I do this. Everybody who hears that is going to love it and remember that. But if you don't tell people that story, they don't get to connect with you. Right now, what you're trying to do as a brand and as a small business with a Shopify store, and you're probably doing the same thing on Etsy. You probably have more of a profile on your Etsy page than you do on your Shopify store, right? Because they actually have little boxes for you to fill out, tell us about yourself kind of stuff. You want your customers to come to you, remember you, form a connection with you, and that's going to be a human connection. They're not going to remember you because you're the best price or the best selection, right? If they want the best price or best selection, they're going to Alibaba or Amazon or Walmart. That's where the best price and selection is. Maybe not the best product, maybe not the best service, but that's where they're going to get the best on the price and those kind of things. So you've got to differentiate where you can differentiate from big mega corporations. And that is the fact that you're a real human being who really is passionate about fabric and quilting. So I would double down on that big time. Do you have kids?
No.
Dogs?
Dogs.
Yeah, seriously. In the About Us page, I always tell my clients, I either want to see babies or dogs, because both those things make you more human. I don't want to see the corporate photo of you in front of your Tesla on some beautiful background. I want you in a field with a dog throwing a tennis ball. And then I want a video of you where you show your quilting room, because I bet you have one. And, behind it is just stacks and stacks of fabric, right? And the second people look at that, like, yeah, I can identify with that. I can relate to that person. Or I aspire to be like that person. I want my own dedicated quilt room kind of thing. So, wherever you were filming your video, I bet you the rest of that room is an interesting scene for those people. But that camera never comes up and shows you, which it should. And it should show the room in the background. As we talked before, I was asking you the question before, what does the Delafield brand stand for? I think it's about people who are passionate about quilting and want to share that passion and love. Not about the best price, not about the most innovation. And if I'm wrong in this, you can just tell me. But I think it's more about the passion for quilting and fabric, designs, uniqueness and fun and that community thing that you talked about, which I loved, right? People that get together and have their quilting night or their quilting clubs or whatever they're called. How do you connect to those people?
I have a lot of friends that are sewers. And so we typically will get together and usually wine involved and go to someone's house.
Yep. What if you had a program that helped people run a quilting club? Like, you want to start a quilting club in Des Moines, Iowa? Jane of Des Moines, Iowa. Well, here, is how you do that. Here's the PDF that says, you want to do this, you want to have wine and cheese and this and that. And here's your agenda. You should meet once every month. And for the first 12 months, you should do this thing first, then this thing, then this thing. Or, we recommend that you do a quilt together instead of each person doing their own quilt. Or what, I don't know what the right answers are, right? But imagine the advice that you could give them and the trusted resource you could become. And so you could have an email thing that they could sign up for, which is the Quilt Club email. And you could just set it up to send out 52 emails over 52 weeks or 300 emails over 300 weeks, which is the agenda for each week's meeting. Or if it's every month they should meet, then you send one a month kind of thing and help them with that thing. Sign up for our club and then they get all this tips and advice. Now, all this takes content, which takes a lot of work. And this is, a part-time job for you guys. So you're not going to be able to, on day one, generate an email list with 52 emails. But you can develop that over the next 52 months. Right? Do just stay ahead. All you have to do is start the sign up and then just stay ahead of whoever the oldest person to register on that site is. So if you knew that you had new emails have to go out, you don't have to do one email a month to create it and add to your list. You just keep doing it, and make it part of your schedule. And then the beautiful part about that is anybody who signs up for it 3 years from now, they get the same emails on day one. You don't have to rewrite the emails because they all start their journey whenever they start it. And then you get to benefit from that content forever. So it's really hard to create and set up. It takes a lot of energy to create good content. But once you do, it just starts breathing a life of its own. It's unbelievable. I mentioned before about conversion rates and metrics, and you weren't sure yet. What are you using for metrics on your website?
I do have Google Analytics set up. Honestly, when I look at it, I can tell like how many visitors and stuff, but it just seems like it's so much that I can't quite make sense of it yet.
It is. So Google Analytics out of the box does not work well for a Shopify store. I use Google Analytics for all my stores, but you have to optimize it for Shopify. So, just go to my website and just search for Google Analytics for Shopify implementation checklist and just go through this. It'll take you a half an hour or an hour to go through and do all these things, but it's well worth it. And then the best part about that is I've got some canned reports. The Shopify scorecard is my favorite one. And you just click on this, it'll add it to your dashboard automatically, and then set that up as an email to be sent to yourself every week. So that at least every week you're getting one email with just a few metrics on it. And like the conversion rate is one of the most important metrics on that one. And then every week you just look at it for 10 seconds. And you're like, oh, I got 500 visitors last week, and that's normal for me. I expected that. But if you got 800, you're like, what happened? Or if you got 200, you're like, what happened? So just that little heartbeat. Get that regular email sent to you often to start getting a feel, so know what your metrics are, and then just look at them on a regular basis. And then you'll notice when abnormalities happen. Being on top of your metrics, it's a small level of metrics. You don't have to go into all the details and all the minutia, right? As a two-person team, you can't know every metric on your site. On your website, what are the things that you see as needs for improvement that you're looking at doing in the future?
One thing I wonder, and it's great that we're talking to you, is what does an outsider feel about like the navigation of it? Did you come there and kind of get a sense of how to move around it and find the different products, or are we off base?
I actually think that navigation is really, really important. So I like that you asked that question, because to me, the most important thing about a website is the ability for people to find the product they're looking for and buy it. And so many people focus on other things like, here's how cool we are. Here's how hip we are, right? And it's like, no, it's all about finding products and being able to buy them. And that's first and foremost. So I like the fact that you've got shopping links up here. That said, explain to me Brian's provisions.
So Brian's provisions was something we started with the onset of COVID, trying to come up with items that you're on here buying fabrics for yourself. Maybe you should buy something for your husband or wife or significant other to offset what you're buying. So it started out by and large with just some self-care items. And then for a long time, I was carrying a lot of barbecue related items, spices and rubs, which actually did pretty good during that first year of COVID, because with the economy shut down and the store shut down, some of the niche stuff I was listing on there was actually selling really good. But then once the world started to reopen back up, that started to stop, and we started to phase that out.
And I noticed on Google Analytics that a lot of the searches were going to a low cost, item on the Brian's provisions, which was kind of getting away from what we really intended to do, I think, originally. Yeah,
a couple of the products were very popular in the marketplace. So I think there were a lot of bots searching us and finding and keying in on that. It was chili mix, believe it or not.
There's nothing wrong with that. I have this concept that I call linear shopping experiences. And most people set up stores to do parallel shopping experiences. And what I mean by that is when you go into a product page and it shows you 5 other products you might also be interested in, that's parallel. In a linear shopping experience, we let you make the purchase, and then we ask you, would you like fries with that? So one of the things you could think about is if the whole concept of this is, hey, ladies, and we're overgeneralizing there. Hey, ladies, now that you've bought all this great stuff for your hobby, why don't you get something for your significant other? Additional way to do that is when somebody's on here and they click on the chenille and they add it to their cart, maybe that's when you ask them the question, hey, would you like fries with that? So what that looks like is, let's just go to Bixby Chocolate. Go to one of their gifts, right? I'm going to go to main gifts. So I'm going to order their popular lobster dinner. And this is, it's under the gift category. And I'm going to say add to cart. And it asks me, do you want to add a gift card to this? Because you're giving a gift. It's a linear shopping experience. It makes sense that after you buy a gift, you might want a gift card. So if I say yes, please, if I say no, thanks, it takes me to the cart. If I say yes, please, it takes me to the greeting cards page. And I can see all my greeting card options. I'm like, I'm buying a lobster dinner. I'm going to get the lobster card, add it to the cart kind of thing. So that's when I say linear shopping experience, that's what I'm saying. So for you, you could have a little pop-up that comes up and says, hey, do you want to get something for your man? And if they say yes, then you can take them to the Brian's page and show them, all their options there kind of thing. And that's actually an app in the App Store called Linear Shopping Experiences, which is free, which I just happen to make. So I'm promoting myself there, which I apologize for.
That's okay. That sounds cool.
And it works because what I heard you saying, Brian, is our purpose for these products is to, I don't want to use the word guilt because that sounds negative, is to increase our average order value by encouraging people to buy for more than just themselves. And that's
that pack of gum or Snickers bar at the checkout.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And that's why you need to put it as an end cap on the checkout, not as its own element, right? It could be its own element here, but if you want to incorporate it into the shopping experience, then another place to do it, right? If I go to my cart, you could have here some sort of promotion that says, hey, do you want to, buy something else, right? So if we look at Bixby again, and I go to their cart, here we have, hey, do you want a card, right? We're promoting the cards after the gift products, and we also promote them for every product inside the cart. So we have this little promotion here, and this is just custom code that I built in Liquid for them. And then, if they click here, they can, go back and, pick a card they want. I've done other ones where there's only one product being promoted there. If they click yes, it just adds it straight to the cart for them.
Is that part of the Linear app?
No, this is just custom manual code in Liquid, which is not too hard to do. The point being is, as you're trying to increase your average order value, there's multiple places to do that. A lot of people their store basically says, here's all my products, good luck. And what you want to do is guide people and walk them through. So let's get back to your question, Kathy, of, how about your navigation? How does it look and feel? So I'm going to click on the first thing in your navigation, which is fabric. And it gives me a drop down, and I can't click this. So that's on drop. You have it set up on drop down, not on hover. So I have to click for it to show up, not on and it's not on hover. So I actually have to click to get it to show that. And if I click that, it doesn't give me anything. And that's probably a function of your theme and the way it's set up. But let's go into your view all fabric. 387 products on this page or in this collection. I can filter it by just generic tags, and I can sort it. So there's not a lot of tools here. If someone's coming to you, let's say you have a brick and mortar store, Kathy, and they walk in, they're like, I'm looking for fabric. What would you do next?
I would say, what kind of fabric are you looking for?
And what are their options?
Well, there's different themes. There's different collections, holiday fabric, baby fabric, flannel fabric.
Is that what this is trying to sort out for you? Is hey, do you want holiday fabric? Do you want solid fabric? So it's trying to get a little feel for what they're trying to do?
Correct.
Yeah, and what I find is, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's a really good way to set up your let's call them sub collections, right? Is you've got this 387, which is too many products for a consideration. You're trying to make smaller buckets that people can look at, like, oh, let me just look at holiday fabric, and then now they're only looking at 36, which is a much smaller, easier to look through and find what I'm looking for. So that's nice, right? In addition to just having that up there in that menu, you could have the click to the fabric page not take me to view all fabrics or even the view all fabric, right? You could take them to a page where they're making choices. Instead of, showing them all 387 products, the exact same taxonomy you have up here. Do you want fabric collections? Do you want fabric by the yard? You could show those here. Because not everybody is going to, especially on mobile, right? If we look at this on the mobile phone, So I click on that. If I click on fabric, if I'm in a rush, I'm going to click this, and there's not, and on mobile, it's much harder, right? So it's a much smaller screen. So what I like doing is having that top level node of the notions, the fabric, the patterns, and books. Instead of having this go to a collection, I like them to go to a page. And that page I build out, I'm going to go back to Bixby Cart just because it's open. Right, so here on the chocolate, there's bonbons, drinking chocolate, caramels, and bars. I click on it, and I'm not seeing products yet. I'm still seeing collections. So then we show the exact same list you saw here, but now they get to pick what they want. And if they want to see all, they can still see all. Give them another chance to make a decision and tell you what they're looking for. And then if we look at this page again, there's no rich filtering here. So I bet you there's things that you would put in. What theme are you using?
Debut, I believe.
Debut. So you're an online store 1.0. How long's that theme been in place for you?
Since the start of the online one. Was that 2019?
Okay.
I think so.
Okay. There's new features that work in. So having good filters used to be a function of a theme, or even a theme couldn't do great filters. You had to use an app. But now Shopify has its own filters for collections that are much better. That's part of Online Store 2.0. You'd have to upgrade your theme, and you don't necessarily have to do that right now. Having filters at your collection page helps people make better decisions, right? So I'll show you a real example here with Authentic Vintage Posters, where if I look at, so these guys sell old posters, right? And if we just go into Shop All, just to see everything. They got 578 posters, but what we have over here is we have filters, and this is done through an app. We actually spent a whole bunch of time on this one figuring out. We had guesses of what information about posters was important. So we had categories, we had size, we had the type of poster that it is, period, price, and origin. And in the beginning, we had origin up higher, like what country is it from? And we just looked at the click performance, and nobody was clicking on France or United States. They didn't care where it came from. They were more visually focused on what the art was. We, determined what we thought were going to be good filters, and then prioritize those based on how people were actually clicking on them. But imagine on your fabric or all your collections being able to allow people to filter based on certain things, right? Like, I don't know if there's multiple techniques in quilting, but there's probably different tools for different techniques, right? And you can let people see that and select by that.
You said that was part of the theme?
This one here, this theme is the Flex theme. It has good filtering, but this filter app was an actual app. It's called Product Filter and Search, and I absolutely love it. It takes a little bit of time to set up, but it's really, really nice. It's really powerful. Probably more than you need for your store right now. You could get away with the built by Shopify filter if you had a newer theme. But if you don't want to upgrade to a newer theme, you could put an app like this in place on your current Debut theme, and it would work totally fine.
Okay.
You're not giving them enough help at this level, is the Uber point.
That makes sense.
And you can do that by making more buckets and making them walk through those buckets, or having filters. Those are the two big ways to do it. Now let's look at a product page for you. Where did this information come from?
That's from the manufacturer.
Yep. And it reads just like that. And your competition probably has the exact same stuff up there.
Most do.
Yeah. So, once again, creating your own content and your own, product description is your own content. It's hard. That said, it stands out, right? So if we go back to Authentic Vintage Posters, and for these guys, it's interesting to point out, they only have one of these posters. They actually wrote this copy. It's only a paragraph or two, but they spent the time talking about their impression about that poster. And they have to do this for every single product that they sell, and they only sell a unit of one. Now their price point is much higher than yours, but the point being is you could spend a little bit of time talking about your view of this fabric, because it sounds like you've touched every one of these, right? And used every one. Right? And think about this for a second. Imagine, because I find writing to be very hard. I find it really easy to talk on video. Like this kind of conversation is super easy for me. For me to sit down and type out my feedback about your website would take me forever, right? What if you had video on every one of your pages where it's Kathy? And Kathy tells you why she likes this fabric so much. And she shows you one of her projects she did with this fabric. And maybe you don't do that for every one of your pieces in the beginning, but maybe you make one of those a month for the next 12 months, and all of a sudden 12 of your products have it. And then 5 years from now, 70 of them or whatever kind of thing. It's one of those things that builds. And then it's also giving you that street cred that I think you need to lean on with your audience, make that human connection. And now you're selling this product to them versus them reading this generic product description up there. Now, I'm not a fan of share links like this because I don't think anybody's clicked on one of those since 2005. But everybody puts them up, right? And to me, it's just like a waste of space. Now, if you actually see people using them, great, but I don't think anybody ever uses them.
Okay.
And I'm also not a fan of you may also like. This is Shopify's algorithm, which is not that sophisticated. And all of your products are very similar, right? It's fabric, right? So the difference is, like, I literally just bought new headphones for my computer over there today for my podcasting stuff here, right? I actually found Amazon's you may also like usefulness scenario. Because there's these Sony headphones, there's these Sennheiser headphones, and there's these cheap no-name ones. And you may also like, I started looking like, oh, here's other things that are kind of similar in the headphone space. So it's useful. But at this level, I think people probably care more about the texture of the fabric, what kind of fabric it is, and what the color is, and the pattern is. So I don't think the you may also like will be as useful in your store.
Okay.
And if we're doing a good job in getting them this product page by giving them those different, elements in the filters and the collections kind of stuff, we're going to have more confidence they're on the right page. We don't need to recommend when they're looking at this honeydew colored fabric that, hey, you may also like apricot crepe. They can probably figure that on their own. That's my guess, right? And that allows you to make this page a little less cluttered and a little more focused and give you some space to put in that YouTube video where you're going to sit down and explain to people why you love this fabric so much, and you're going to show them the product you made with this fabric. That, I think, would be awesome, by the way.
Okay.
I'd love for you to make one of those in the next week.
Okay.
There's some new product to be listed. It might be a good time to do that.
I know.
Yeah, exactly. And your brand will be so much better when you're the brand, Kathy. Because I'm watching you right now, and you're like, you're very sweet, and I mean that as total compliment. And you seem truly authentic. And that's going to come across to anybody who's also doing quilting, right? They're going to appreciate that way more than any, flashy thing that you do without your face on it.
Thanks.
Do you have any blog articles or content like that? Or is it just the videos?
I do have some blog articles, and that was, I use WordPress for that. Would you suggest that?
Oh, yeah,
a Shopify blog,
Yep.
Or is it okay to have it separate?
It used to be a best practice to have your blog on WordPress and your store on Shopify or any other e-commerce platform. And that went away around 2017 because Shopify improved enough that just about anything you need for a blog. The WordPress is a way better blog tool, but the Shopify blog meets all your needs today where it didn't pre-2017. So one of the reasons you want this on the exact same site is this is a different domain. Mm-hmm. So all the SEO credit that this store gets or this site gets doesn't help this domain at all. Now, you could link between them and bring traffic in on one and push it over the other. So 10, 15 years ago, the SEO best practice was you literally create 1,000 sites and you bring traffic in and they all link to each other. And that was called gray hat back then. And since then, Google hates that. And the strategy now is the exact opposite. You bring all your content into one site. Like I have a client today who she has 4 sites for 4 different product lines, but those product lines are very similar. And we're combining them into one site because for SEO purposes, it's going to be better to have them on one site so that all the SEO juice is what they call it, all the inbound links for one product. Well, all the other products are going to benefit from that also. So bringing everything together today is the best practice, where it used to be you divided them up. So, yeah, if you could, bring your blog into your Shopify or into your Shopify, that'd be really helpful. Does this drive traffic for you at all? Do you know?
I don't know.
Yeah. And that's where, once you get into Google Analytics and get that report sent to you every week, one of the things in the scorecard that I create is it shows you your traffic sources for the week. So every week you're going to know like, oh, most of my traffic came from organic, or it came from my ads, or it came from my emails, and you'll start seeing where your traffic's coming from. And that's why looking at that every week and just understanding 10 seconds isn't, it's probably exaggerated. Probably takes you less than a minute to look at it each week and go, all right, I understand what's going on in the past week kind of thing. But you're going to be so much smarter by doing that for 10 minutes once a week. Because what you don't want to do is invest time and energy in things that don't work.
Right.
But the challenge with content is it takes time for it to work, right? So for SEO, for you to benefit from all the content you create in SEO, it takes time. But you can also use that content on your social presences. All the things you're thinking about, videos you make, you can then push those to your different platforms and drive traffic that way. Now, another thing to think about for you for traffic acquisition and social is, are there groups today that you can be a member of? I'm thinking Facebook groups as I say that, for quilting and become a participant. So use that human connection to be seen. And, when somebody asks the question like, how do you do the butterfly quilt thing? All you do is you add a link to your blog article about that or your video about that, right? And it's not a sales thing, right? It's just being really friendly and helpful. What I do a lot of times is when my clients ask me, how do I do this? How do I do that? I create a video, not for them. I create a video for anybody who has that question. And then I share that with my client. And they get the answer. But then that video now exists on the internet. And I made that transcript from all my videos. And it starts getting indexed in search. And all of a sudden people ask that same question my client's asking. Well, they now get an answer from me. So as you're creating that content, find natural places those conversations are happening and insert your content in a non-salesy, very helpful way. And that's a way to help start building your brand. And it can also drive what content you create. So like I wait for my clients to ask me a specific question, then I create the content for it. And I ask myself, is this a question that everybody's going to ask? Yes, it is. All right, let's create content for it. If you start participating in these groups and forums, you could see what questions people have, and that could help you determine what content to make. And then when they ask the question the next time, you just drop a link into your video or into your blog and that kind of stuff. And they're not going to, anybody gets upset about that, well, they just got issues, right? Because you're not saying buy. You're like, here is free resources I'm providing for you. And that just starts building your brand and reputation in those communities. And I would imagine that the Facebook quilting, I bet you there's a bunch of Facebook groups for quilting.
Yes, there's many.
Yeah, and I would bet you a lot of them have lots of activity and lots of people in them. So that, to me, might be part of your social strategy, is tap into those existing groups, because there's probably so many of them for you to create a new one. It's probably too late. Like I used to advise people 5 years ago, go create a Facebook group for your industry, because the one probably didn't exist back then, but now there's 10,000 for every industry. But just participate in those groups and add value in those groups. You don't come in and go, here's our new product line, right? I would never post that on a Facebook group. Now there might be some Facebook groups that's appropriate, but that would be too salesy. But going in and like, hey, here's our new video about this new technique, that I think would be totally appropriate at any time. So as you're creating that content, it's going to take a while for it to generate that organic search traffic, but you can use that content in other channels like social, but you got to find the natural and intuitive ways to do that. And I think the Facebook groups is the first place I'd look at. In some industries, it's more like you go to Reddit and look there. But for you, it's Facebook groups, I think. How did you come up with your logo?
We used, I think it was called Design Hill, and did a logo competition.
Oh, excellent. How much did it cost? Do you remember?
I think it was $500, which made, at the time I was like, ooh, that seems pricey, but it was much better than anything that we could have ever done. Oh,
I absolutely agree. Like my first Jade Puma logo was actually, clip art from Shutterstock. And it was a puma and I put a green shade over its face. And that was my logo for a couple of years. And last summer I actually paid for a logo, and it's worth every penny you pay for it, because they do such a bit. You tell them the right things. Like your logo, the reason I was asking the questions, I like your logo a lot. It's nice.
Thank you.
Right? I actually like the Delafield font. It seems, a little bit more like my I'm thinking about my great grandmother when I think of quilts, because she made the one that I slept under. And it looks like something my great grandmother would have, like that kind of font, right? And the sewing machine and the stitching, it's all really nice.
Thank you.
All right, so if you want to double your revenue, you're probably going to need to double your traffic, or at least, 1.5, 1.75 your traffic. And you're going to have to do a better job in monetizing your existing customers. And the monetizing your existing customers, primarily that's going to be your email tool, which you're not that heavily invested in yet. And for your customer acquisition, we've come up with a couple of content strategies to do that, which are long-term plays. And your short-term strategy for that should be, I would start off looking at some Pinterest advertising.
Okay.
Does that all make sense?
Yes, it does. Right. Thank you.
Now, that's like 4 or 5 different, initiatives, right? And each one of them takes time and energy. And I'm a big fan of doing everything one at a time. Just pick one thing you're going to, and for you, the starting point for you is content.
Okay.
Right? Because the organic search stuff is content-based. The social stuff is content-based. The engaging on social platforms is content-based. The Pinterest you could do without content. I would get a little bit comfortable with taking videos of you, putting your face in it, not just your beautifully manicured hands, right? And get comfortable with that. Like in the next few months, if you create a couple videos of you and have an about page about you and start making your brand about you and your passion and sharing that with people, that's where I'd start off.
Okay. It's hard to put your face out there, though.
You know what? Everybody agrees with you 100%. Right? It's hard for everybody, right? If you ever watched Janet Jackson's first music video, she was horrible. And I forget which video it was. It was Bad Boys or something like that. She is horrible in that video. And if you watch her in a music video she shot like 8 years later, she exudes confidence, beauty, charisma. Like, she was not a natural in front of the camera. She was awful when she started. But how she got good is she just did it, right? And she just kept doing it. And I don't know if you ever listened to, a year ago, I did a interview with a guy who runs a company called Grip Clean. And I talked about his TikTok channel, right? And he makes lots of videos. And he's so good at making videos. It's like, how did you get so good at that? And he used to be a professional motorcycle rider. He's like, I just got comfortable in front of a camera. And he's like, I'm a total introvert. I hate this stuff, but I had to do it to be, a professional motorcycle rider. So he's like, that's how I got comfortable. He's like, I'm never comfortable. I just have gotten over being uncomfortable about it. And that's like, for me, like, I'm an introvert. I don't like putting myself out there, but I do it every day because I've done it so many times now. I'm used to it. So that's why I challenge you, literally, in the next week, before this podcast episode launches, create a video and put it on your site, please. Because if you do that, doing 5 more after that's going to be so much easier. And if you wait, you're always going to procrastinate, or at least I would, right? It's so easy to procrastinate. So just get yourself in that, force yourself to do it, because everybody's uncomfortable. You're not unique in that, but everybody can get more comfortable. And you're going to, a year from now, be like, yeah, shoot a video. Let's go. Come on, let's do it. Any questions about everything we talked about?
I don't think so.
Excellent.
Like Brian said, there's so much that I'm just trying to take all in. I took a lot of notes too, and we'll definitely listen to the podcast because that'll be a good resource for us to.
Yeah. Well, and remember, you can't do everything we talked about, and don't feel like you have to. Pick one thing, just start doing it. And once you get that under the belt, then start doing the next thing. One at a time, get comfortable with it. But I do think for you, start with video. And start because that's the most uncomfortable one. Like if you were given your priorities, you'd probably wait till last for that.
Yes.
And I really, every single, and this isn't about you guys at all, every single Shopify store today should be making video. And if they're not, they're missing the game. I fully believe that. So you will have an advantage over all the other quilt companies if you're the one making videos. And your advantage doesn't have to be price. It can be videos and that human connection. All right. Thanks for your time today. It was great talking to y'all.
Thank you for sharing
Thanks
your
so
expertise.
much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Shopify Solutions Podcast with Scott Austin. This podcast is brought to you by Jade Puma, a Shopify-focused agency located in San Diego, California. If you like what you heard, please leave a review and subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast.